Our first question is, a lot of bands play competition tunes at a much higher tempo than you would in solos. Can being in a band sabotage your playing? Ooh,
It's amazing how there's really just 12 questions that people have about bagpipes.
they're always the same, just formulated differently.
There's just about 12. And then it's the same thing, and then we're just asking in a different way. So what do we think the answer to this question is? Can playing at a tempo that is too high for you, quote, sabotage your playing? Hit us in the chat, guys and gals.
What do you think?
Yeah. Answer is yes. This reminds me of, you know what this reminds me of, Carl? It reminds me of the NFL, American football. When American footballers, and maybe you might have to just use the power of speculation here, but when they practice during the week before the games, do they practice at 100% intensity with all the pads on, trying to absolutely kill each other?
I wouldn't imagine so.
I don't think they do. And by the way, I actually don't know. I'm not really a football player, but they don't. I think some practices that they barely wear pads at all. So like dress rehearsal, right? What's another word for that, Carl? Like lower intensity, right? So
Yeah,
we're going to lower the intensity in several respects so that we can work on the important skills. Okay. Now, however, once you get to Sunday and the game and the opposing team's on the line, and if you're in the NFL, this is like your career. This is potentially your legacy. There's lots of people who are going to be angry if you don't go at the utmost intensity. What are you going to do at the game? You're going to go crazy, right?
I would put the pads on.
Yeah, we're putting the pads on. We're drinking the juice. We're putting the pads on. We're getting the drinking 18 cups of coffee and we're going for it. So there's a time and a place for, I guess my where I'm trying to go with this analogy is there's a time and a place to go 110%, right? By the way, when you go that hard, do these guys in the NFL like risk injury and risk bad
Hmm.
things happening? Like absolutely. And that's I feel like in general that's a calculated risk, right? It's like if you don't go at full intensity, if not beyond full intensity at the game, team's going to lose. Okay. So it reminds me of that. Okay. So can playing in a band sabotage your playing? The good news is playing tempos that are too fast are not likely to injure you like maybe would happen in the NFL. It's not likely to injure you permanently.
Or
Okay.
physically, but
Right. The other thing it reminds me of is climbing Everest. Like you don't want to spend too much time in the danger altitude zone. Okay. But sometime in the danger altitude zone is going to be necessary if you want to get to the top of Everest. You follow me? But you don't want to be like, we wouldn't be like camping out at extreme altitudes all year round if we were, but everyone's following me what I'm saying, right? Yes. So it could sabotage your playing. But what really sabotages people's playing is always hanging out in the high altitude tempo zone. Sometimes going to the high altitude tempo zone, I don't think is going to do that much harm. And I do think it's one of the realities of playing in the band. Playing in the band would not be that fun if the band only played at 50% tempo because not everybody could play perfectly at the full tempo. That's not realistic. That's not going to happen. And bands do tend to play slightly faster than soloists as well, right? And I feel like that's a different topic that I don't want to get
see,
distracted with.
I took this question in a completely different way.
Hang on, hold that thought.
Yeah.
So my point is, being in a band sabotage your playing? Answer, that's not what might sabotage your playing, right? Playing at high tempos all the time is probably what's going to sabotage your playing. And if I'm in a band, a lot of my development is going to go in at a lower tempos with control, making sure I have everything under control. And I'm not going to spend all my time just blasting away at absolute
Right.
monstrous tempos.
And that would be beneficial for both. Any time spent practicing with an objective goal that's measurable at the right intensity, that's going to improve everything you do.
Yeah. But it's like anything, right? It's sometimes you're going to burn the house down, sometimes you're not. By burn the house down, like sometimes we're going to go out there and burn it down. Like for example, when Inverary actually goes out on the competition field there's usually a little bit of calculated risk tempo wise there too. And we just kind of let things go and go for it a little bit within reason. Anyway, Carl, where were you going with this?
I was going with this that it shouldn't like I understood this question as we get used to playing tunes at a higher tempo, not necessarily too high, but at a higher band tempo than your 2/4 march, and therefore struggle to play a 2/4 march in solos at the right tempos. And I took this as going, well, yeah, but if we're approaching it the right way, which is just learning to develop control, tempo is just one knob that we have control over. And so there shouldn't be any difference playing in a band or with your solo march other than, say, tempo and then maybe also expression. We're going to do things differently. But if we start from a standpoint of learning to develop control and mastery over the fundamentals, we're going to be able to do both with ease. So, no. But I think we do have that sort of idea that if we only learn how to do band and we don't learn the proper fundamentals and how to control them, then yeah, you might struggle to play some solos because you'd play it like a band material and that wouldn't be good. But as long as we're doing this the right way, no problem. We got this. That was my thought.
Yeah, Gavin outed himself as the anonymous asker of this question. The whole time, Carl was like, "Yeah," or Gavin was like, "Yeah, this is great," and then you're like, "Totally."
And I
Yeah,
ruined
we know
it.
it's you. He's
Yeah.
like, "No," and it's okay. It's a good question. You can simplify in band in a way you can't in solos. You can simplify in the solos, but yes, it usually tends to be a strategic problem, right? Like it tends to be a problem if you do. Judges tend not to like it. You can play quicker if you don't play the fiddly bits. Yeah, you're modulating the intensity in a different area so you can make up for it in another.
But the good news is in solos, you can modulate the tempo down to get the fiddly bits in. That's perfectly fine. And it's
Maybe.
maybe, right. There's a lower limit, but that lower limit is usually lower than most of us think and succeed at playing on the competition field. Most of us play too fast. So, do both, especially solos because that helps you in your band. You know, that focus on getting those fiddly bits in and working on those fiddly bits that are challenging but at a lower tempo will help you be better in the band. Even
Mm,
if they're completely different material, it's going to help in the band. What I think.
nice.
All right, up next,
The next question is very serious. It comes from a
a
wor
worried
a
musician.
worried musician. It's
Oh
very,
dear.
very serious question. Don't be too worried. There's only one reason to play bagpipes, and that's to just have fun and enjoy yourself. But the worried musician says, why don't we see a practice chanter as a real instrument? So often they sound really terrible, even in high grade bands.
Mhm.
Why isn't an in tune practice chanter the standard?
It is if you attend my classes, but yeah, there's a lot to be said for this. Practice chanters are, I don't know if it's so much the practice chanter as there's no money in making good practice chanter reads. I think that's the real rub of it. Like you could never charge enough to have a consistent practice chanter read because a lot of people don't consider them real instruments. But there are people out there making really good ones.
They say that. I got a practice chanter recently that I was really looking forward to, like how beautiful and in tune it was going to be, and it was just wildly out of tune.
Yeah, you don't want to say which one. But
Not really
yeah,
relevant, but yeah, I think that's true. I also think that
maybe the physics is harder. I don't
I
know.
think you're going to be dealing with a lot of the same issues with a practice chanter that you would with others. And I just think that the practice chanter is seen, especially in a high grade band, right? Like the practice chanter is, yeah, like why do you need it to sound good? Why do you need it to sound great? In Inverary, it sounds pretty good. If somebody has a practice chanter that has a bad note or something, they'll like use some tape and fix it and get it sounding okay. But what's the purpose of the practice chanter, right? The purpose of the practice chanter is to get the basics in place and so on. And then I don't know about you guys, but I want to get up on the pipes.
But there's a lot to be said, and it's something we've talked about frequently, Andrew, is it'd be great to help tune our ears.
Oh
You know,
yeah,
have an instrument
sure.
that's in tune from the beginning. And it's absolutely something that most of us as beginners struggled with because they were never in tune. It's like, it doesn't sound right. Yeah, but that's just a practice chanter. Don't worry about it. But it doesn't sound right. And then we get used to this. I think there is some of that.
Yeah, but do you want to spend time at band practice tuning your practice chanters, or do you want to spend time at band practice playing on the tunes, working on the tunes, getting the
Here's the
back?
good news. If you tune your practice chanter using tape, folks, it's not complicated. It's the same process. You know how to do this if you know how to tune a set of pipes. It's in tune for like months because we never change the reed. It doesn't really change that much. Like a little bit of tuning work goes a long way to just making it stable and good. My chanter has tape on, I think, 7 out of 9 holes, sometimes significantly, but stays in tune.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we've done classes on it. You definitely have it in my class archive, tuning the practice chanter. Andrew did it like a year or two ago as well, but it's a process that we should absolutely do at home using our tools to the best of our ability and get it in tune. Yeah, why not?
So why isn't an in-tune practice chanter the standard?
Laziness.
Raleigh is also saying with material technology and engineers, why can't they engineer the perfect read? Okay. So if you wanted to, if you had the choice between engineering a working mechanical heart that could save millions of lives, right? Let's just say, or I don't know, what are some other awesome things? Or some sort of administration device for the pharmaceutical industry, something like that, right? If you had the choice between that or designing the perfect practice chanter, what would you pick?
Keeping in mind that if you get that perfect mechanical heart working, you're going to be pretty stinking rich.
Yeah, Dave, I'd
Uh,
rather go to Mars too. Don't get me wrong, I would love an in-tune practice chanter, but let's go to Mars first.
yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Um, they could hand this one off to a new hire. It should be that this is what we need to do, folks. Lobby your local engineering firms. The test for them to get a job, make an in-tune practice channel. There you go.
Yeah. I also think that here's the other thing. I could invent the perfect chanter and it would sound amazing, but if certain people, if I give that chanter to them, they will instantly figure out how to make it sound awful and have no clue. So
It's,
it's also, I think it's also a knowledge thing.
yeah. Blowing the reed at the right pressure is still true here. There is a sweet spot on your practice channel, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a little bit of laziness. I think it's a little bit of just never having learned and certain practice channers having maybe some faults about the default placement of some of the
Yeah.
holes.
Why can't we have why don't we just have children that behave themselves all the time?
I don't know. Yours don't?
No, they don't. And they're not bad. I don't think my children are that bad. I'm biased. Some of you have met them, so I'll let you be the judge. But my children aren't that bad, but man, they're often not great. So like that kind of reminds me of this, where it's like, I think what you think you want is not actually a thing. What we really want to do is we want to give a practice chanter to someone who has a potential interest in playing the bagpipes. And we're not going to nitpick over the tuning of their practice chanter constantly all the
Yeah.
time because that would be lame. And just like kids who are like coming up in the world, it's if all you did with a kid was nitpick about perfection and letting them know that engineers have solved these problems and they just need to reticulate their splines and calculate the differentials and be perfect. It's not actually a thing. Yeah, you have to figure it out on your own, Tom. That's right. And so even if we could invent the practice chanter that was perfectly in tune, most people wouldn't even have an awareness whether it was in or not because that's something that has to be developed. So this question, I feel you, but I think you got to check yourself.
Also, tune your own chanter and then lead by example.
Lead by example. We will
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah.
But don't be worried.
Yeah.
Lose answers to make a goose with a pipe chanter and tune it properly. Okay, but what about the 98% of people that wouldn't even recognize that you had done so? Like
Also,
tuning
it's
is a skill that has to be developed.
yeah, and it's way harder to tune the intervals of the chanter with no reference point than it is with a drone, right? And so I think that's also part of the reason why practice chanters are not tuned that often is because all you have to go on, unless you're being a little creative, it's not that hard. is the distance from one note to the next, or you're using a digital tuner, which doesn't work well on the practice chanter. But
Hmm.
I think that's harder too.
Yeah. Interesting. By the way, they do have practice chanters that are always perfectly in tune, called Blair digital chanters.
Yes, they do.
Okay, let's move on.
All right.
Here we go. Yep.
David Brown
Yep.
asks,
Yep.
any comments on Jack Lee stepping down as pipe sergeant of SFU?
Yeah,
You played under him.
I did. I lived at his house for a couple of summers. Yeah. Yeah. Jack's the goat. Okay. Sure. Okay. There's a potentially infinite number of comments, but I think that Jack and Terry elevated the game drastically in a ton of interesting ways. It might be like they may have been the spark that ignited the incredible renaissance of kids playing bagpipes in Scotland. A just random comment throwing it out there. I'm pretty sure what happened is, first of all, they started the RMM juvenile program, presumably to provide longevity to the SFU pipe band program to make sure that there was, and obviously also to give back and all sorts of good stuff like that. But then they started to take, just like they did with the grade one band, they started to take the kids band over to Scotland, and the kids band dominated in Scotland. It was a huge statement about how good you could get kids to be. And they went over and they dominated all of the Scottish juvenile bands hard for 10 or 15 years. Oh, RMM's coming over. Basically, they're definitely going to win and that this is the juvenile grade. Now, things have changed since then, right? Things have changed. Now it's totally different. But I speculate, and I don't know this, but I speculate that getting pounded by a visiting band from Canada year after year may have inspired the schools to up their game in Scotland. And now what we're seeing is like the most awesome thing that's ever happened in the history of bagpipes, where you've got like literally thousands of kids being taught by literally the world's greatest pipers really on a daily basis. And the effects, you're already starting to see the effects. And 10 years from now, the level is going to be unbelievable.
Yeah.
So that's just like that's just a teeny one. And they did that in the grade one as well. 1995 through the present, SFU has been a dominating force, but for a brief period of time there, it wasn't that brief. It wasn't that brief, but they were absolutely one of the world's most dominant bands. And no one knew what the result of the Worlds was going to be ahead of time because SFU hadn't shown up yet.
Yeah.
And that was always the case. I was a member of the band from '02 to '07, and we didn't win the Worlds a single time while I was in the band, but we were close every single time. And it was always a thing, right? I'm pretty sure in '08 and '09, the SFU pipe band dominated so hard that other bands were having emergency meetings trying to figure out what to do. And Jack was and still still would be. Jack was and still would be like a huge part of that, getting the pipe core playing really well. And then yeah, how long's he done it? 40 years or something? How many people hang out in bands for 40 years nowadays?
Yeah.
By the way, I think SFU went to the Worlds for the first time. I'm probably have this story wrong. I think they went to the Worlds for the first time in 1983 and took second in the piping.
Wow.
Just it's like they had the whole like the sheer force of will thing.
Yeah, just sheer quality out of nowhere.
But also we'll just make it happen. They I think they could grind and still do. I think they still do grind far beyond what most bands assume is the limit. If you ever get a chance to sit down with Jack or Terry and listen to them talk about the history of the band, it's incredible. And I think it's played a huge role in the trajectory of piping. Huge,
Mm.
huge.
They
And
proved it could be done. Yeah.
yeah, and they proved it could be done and they pushed limits that people assumed were hard limits. And yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
I'm lacking my knowledge here, but is there any other North American band that's won it more than once other than SFU?
No, and when the 70th Frasers
Yeah.
won it, and when the 70th Frasers won it, Reed Maxwell was the leading drummer. which by the way, someday Reed will retire and that'll just be another. It's just it's an incredible thing. No. And when will we ever see another band from outside the greater UK area win the worlds? It's
Maybe.
gonna take if I would say no, unless people are going to take some pages from Jack and Terry's playbook and push limits that people assume are impossible limits. I know Slot's not part of the UK, but I would consider them part of the greater UK area. That's why I said, by the way, Gavin, that's exactly why I said that. All right, you're smart. You're smart, but I got you. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see it, right? By the way, SFU's still in the mix and they're still going to be amazing next year. They could win it for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess what I meant is like a different band, someone going to come from Australia or America or something. Yeah, it's really cool. And Jack's the man.
Yeah.
I think on a personal level, I try to emulate Jack in terms of just putting the good of piping first, which by the way is not always easy. But yeah.
All right. You ready for another one? This is another recurrent question that comes back, though less frequently.
By
This
the
might
way,
be
a couple
13th.
closing. Can I give a couple closing thoughts about Jack retiring?
Sure.
I hope he doesn't want to start an online bagpipe school company in his retirement. And follow up thought, I want to call him. I have to call him like this week to see if he wants to teach some more at the dojo now, if he has a little bit of extra time. Just a couple minor follow up thoughts.
I would imagine if he's retiring, he's looking forward to doing something else.
Yeah, like teaching more bagpipes.
I don't know. Maybe he likes long walks along the beach or something. I don't know.
All right. You can't blame me for trying.
Definitely. All right. You ready for the next one?
Yeah.
This is the ubiquitous question of will synthetic chanter reeds for pipes ever become a thing? It closely mirrors our answer, I think, to the practice chanters. No, because no engineer is going to spend enough time to actually get them good if you can, and not for the amount of money that a really decent normal pipe chanter reed costs. Yeah, I get it, they're expensive, but not relative to what it would have to cost to develop
Here's what
a
I think.
synthetic one.
Here's something maybe I think. I think in the way we think about it, Carl's probably right. Although there's no laws of physics that say it couldn't happen. But I think synthetic chanter reeds, I think I could see it going in a different direction that would still be synthetic, but it wouldn't be what we think in our minds. We think about those little reeds with the clear plastic. That's what you're thinking about, right? But will there be a time where you can grow a synthetic version of the cane that they use in Spain? You could probably grow it in your own garden and it'll be like a synthetic, genetically modified cane or something that you can grow in your own environment. And I think that could happen and maybe will happen. And then that would really change things. And I would see enough musicians being interested in that, right? Like what oboe players are famous for desperately struggling to find the right
Good
reed.
cane.
And they do a lot of manipulation and the reeds are very similar. So yeah, like at some point you'll be able to synthesize the cane that we love and use that and you won't be able to tell the difference. And that's probably how we're going to end up with synthetic chanter reeds becoming a thing. But it does, I will admit that it mutates this question slightly in the
Mm.
sense that, okay, yes, that'll be a synthetic reed, but it'll still chip on the corners and it'll still get mold on it when you leave it in there. And in that sense, that's what this person's really asking. Will there
I
ever
think so.
be a plastic reed that's cheap that I don't have to properly take care of or think about and a way for me to just automatically sound great with no work?
Think about it. If we like to get a really good sound out of a synthetic chanter reed, it would have to have very similar properties to a cane natural normal reed,
Yeah.
which includes, as you say, those thin blades and those sharp corners, and you're not going to get around that. So even if it were synthetic, it's still probably going to be relatively fragile.
There's going to be like someday there's going to be like a 3D printer,
Yeah.
but it can like create plants. right? Like it's going to let you play around. Like someday there's going to be a 3D printer that somehow, say, without risking destroying all of humanity, allows you to like play around with the actual genetics of plants so that you can make your own interesting combinations.
Yeah.
And then people will make a Rundo Donax variants out of it and maybe come up with better reads or something. Like someday there'll be something like that.
Yeah.
Sounds fun.
Sounds fun.
Sounds
Maybe.
also like we might accidentally create like a man eating plant accidentally with one of these.
It's definitely going to be a bagpiper that makes that too.
Totally. I was just trying to get good tone. The unchippable reed. But yeah,
Yeah.
something like that. And there might be something like that. Yeah. I don't know.
All
Yeah.
right.
All right. Abraham has a question. Should a band
Yes.
always hold two beats of E before a pickup note? And is there a difference if there aren't pickup notes? Does this change when the drums come in? Okay, that's a good question. So we're talking about at the end of the roll offs, right? So we got this is the pipe band. This is E, then the E comes in, and then the E should have two beats, right? Before the tune starts. So Scotland the Brave, it's Scotland the Brave, right? So that should have two beats in the E, and then you start the tune, right? Everybody agree? It's good. So as the default, okay, what Abraham is saying here is totally correct. So by default, so we have two rolls, and then we have two beats on E, and then the tune starts. By the way, the reason it works like this is not because they made the rules that way. It's because it's what musically balances out. So when you're in 4/4 or 2/4 time, it balances. So we have the rolls would go 1, 2, 3, and then a rest on 4, right? The empty space between the rolls is the rest. And then there would be rolls E, E, right? So it's 4 total beats. So E, start the tune on the first downbeat, right? It all balances out. That's the reason why the rolls work the way that they do. And by default, Abraham's totally correct. Okay, now, if the tune has a pickup note, all right, rather than thinking about how long the E should be, all right, the trick is to just make sure that the tune starts, or that the downbeat of the tune starts on the downbeat, right? That's the main thing. So
Yeah.
if you have a 1 beat long pickup note, how long does the E now become? We have to deduct the value of that pickup note from the E. All right. So if you have a 1 beat pickup note, your E is now 1 beat. But some tunes have half a beat pickup note. So how long is the E going to be?
A beat and a half.
Beat and a half. If your pickup note is 1/16th note, then your E is going to be almost 2 full beats. But then you might have a little tiny pickup note before the tune, right? So that's the way that you should think about that. By the way, when you have a tune that's not in 4/4, like when you have a 3/4 march, for example, there's often some debate about how long the E should be. And the tradition is to continue to play a 2 beat E, even though oftentimes a 3/4 march has that like implied pickup note and it seems to put you off on the wrong foot. So there's a little bit of gray area there with 3/4 marches. But to answer your question, should a band always hold 2 beats of E before a pickup note?
No.
No is the question. No is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay, but the explanation behind the answer is we want the everything to balance out musically. So the E should be as long as necessary in order for the tune and the roll-offs to integrate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're actually, by the way, marching is a great way to figure it out, right? The first one of the tune, right? Like for example, Rowan Tree has how many beats of a pickup? It has 1 full beat. Dum ba da, and the C is the first main downbeat of the tune. And a 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1, and right. So in that case, the E would be 1 beat, but you can figure that out if you march to it. So you'd have starting with my left foot. I'm going to show you my feet. This is my left foot. And then there's my left foot starting on the C of Rowan Tree. Good question. I like that question. We don't get that one that often.
Yeah.
It's not one of the 12.
And just to clarify, in case somebody missed this, the first beat of the tune would be the first note in the first full bar of music
Yeah.
as written on the page.
Yep. But the
Yeah.
answer to that question is like the answer to the question is like feel the music. It should all balance.
Yeah. Very good. Nice. All right. On occasion, this anonymous person needs to mic their drones. Do you know any good gooseneck style mic holders that work with pipes drones?
Okay, my answer to that question is I have no idea.
Yeah, no
However,
idea.
I'm going to tell you who to reach out to.
Murray Blair?
You could, but the person I would reach out to is Ross Miller. You can
Yeah.
find him on Facebook, and he has a ton of performance experience playing with his own bands, playing with pipe bands, playing with the Red Hot Chili Pipers, playing with Hans Zimmer and stuff. Like the man has experience, and he's thought through every possible bit of gear, I'm certain. The man would be Ross Miller or Ross Ainsley, maybe some of those guys.
Yep.
But I think if you sent Ross a text message, say, Andrew Douglas told me to ask you, he's going to be thrilled. He may need you to buy a CD or something before he answers your question, but it'll be worth it.
On top of the fact that you're going to get an awesome CD
Yeah, it's a great. So
or his tune book. Yeah.
that's my answer to that question. Yeah, I really don't know. And it's going to be it would be a matter of trial and error.
And it also probably changes. Like in the last 5 or 10 years, they've come out with new stuff probably. That's so yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. He's gonna know.
He's going to know.
Yeah.
Yep. A lot of times they don't bother miking the drones. A lot of times the drones just muddy up the mix. So they're there. He's playing his drones, let's say, or I would be
Right.
playing my drones, but really it's the chanter that you want in the mix, and the drone's just going to muddy it up. And oftentimes the sound guys, dude, these drones sound like butt. And they do, and you're moving around maybe when you're on stage and stuff. And so like,
Ross Miller is.
yeah. Now, are the drones really adding to the sound or not? And anyway, Ross is the guy to talk to about that.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he had maybe one drone mic'd when I saw him
It's
show,
maybe the bass,
maybe the bass.
or was it one at the time? Yeah, I can't remember.
I can't remember either. But what I would,
There's at least 5 other people in this room that were there. Anyone else remember?
yeah. And by the way, recording in a studio would be slightly different, right? Like that would be a different set. So it depends if you're talking of studio recording or for live performance. All right. Either way, Ross is probably the guy to start with.
Yeah.
He's just a good guy, you guys. When we were younger, we used to look similar. So people would come up to him all the time and start talking to him about dojo stuff. And they'd come up to me all the time. But I
Yeah.
digress. All right. Okay. This is one of the 12.
Does a hard read equal better tone?
Yeah. This is one of the 12 questions.
Yeah.
What's the answer? Is a hard read better? Does it get you better tone?
Depends. Are you able to properly play that read at its sweet spot?
Yeah, Carol, we probably did do it last week. This is one of the 12. This is one of the questions we get in various forms all the time. Yeah. So does it equal better tone? Answer: no, it doesn't. There are trade-offs, right? There are pros and cons to playing a harder read versus a less hard read. Let's go through some of the pros and cons. What are some of the pros of a hard read? More volume. So does
More
volume,
fun?
but is volume really a characteristic of good versus bad tone? Like how loud it is?
No.
It depends who you ask, but generally, I would say probably loudness isn't that important when it
Come on, folks. This is already more than loud enough.
yeah. But yeah, maybe some volume. It could be beneficial in some situations. I get it. But so you get more volume, you might get a little more crackle off the chanter, for lack of a better word. And then for me, the real reason hard reads are valuable is that they're more stable. So when there are problems with the blowing, a hard read will change less with changes in blowing. Well, until it just shuts off completely because you're not giving it enough. But if you're unsteady, a hard read will mask that better than an easy read. That's the real reason that when you're a rookie in a grade 1 pipe band, you're probably getting a read that's pretty hard.
Because it masks the lack of blowing control. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's cool. So those are definitely potential upsides. Now, what are the downsides of a hard read?
There's a number of them.
The harder the reed you play, the probability that you start to struggle and other and really bad things start to happen goes up. The harder the
Mhm.
reed, the probability of bad things happening goes up. Yeah.
Injury, potential to
Yeah.
injure yourself, totally possible.
Yep. And then the slightest drop in air pressure and your reed's going to cut out. Yep, exactly. And is a hard reed, does it tend to be less sweet and less harmonic than an easier reed?
Sometimes.
I would say that's probably definitely something that you want to be concerned about. But the main thing is just the complete loss of control over other areas because you're struggling to keep your pipes going. That's the
Yeah.
downside of that hard reed.
I think you'd also logically have less playtime
Yeah.
because there's more air flowing through the instrument, so it would get wet sooner.
Yep. That's a big downside for sure.
Yeah,
That could be disproven if you showed me
perhaps.
evidence that's not true. Like maybe, but it certainly seems
Certainly
to me
seems
that
that way.
the harder the reed I play, the faster my pipes get wet.
Yeah,
Carol says you die sooner.
true.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right. Shortens your actual lifespan. Yeah, by playing a hard reed.
Uh,
Enjoyment goes down the harder the reed is. Just my own personal enjoyment. Yeah, and then don't forget there's lots of wonderful upsides to reeds that aren't hard, like an increase in harmonics, and then the increase in bandwidth.
mm,
You can play better with an easier reed. So anyway, it's not to say everyone should play an easier reed. What we're saying is we have to evaluate the pros and cons. Yes. Janet said there was a guy in her band who his reed was so hard that veins were popping out and we thought he was going to blow a gasket. That's dangerous.
blow a gasket. We're talking about a human body. If that were true, like that's seriously medically there's big problems, folks.
Uh,
Don't be that person.
hernias are very common. Hernias are very common, and there's other things that are common too. Blowing hard reed,
Yeah.
like actual physical injury. And then, yeah, to Brett's point, you don't want to. People are popping blood vessels in their eyeballs, and then what if you popped one in your brain or something?
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be a fun day, right?
All because there's a dogma that when you play in a band you have to play a hard reed. Yeah. So just beware of that. I think 10 years ago this was way more pervasive than it is now. I think
Yeah.
the world has begun to move forward from the horrible idea that hard reeds are the only thing acceptable in a pipe band.